Welcome to the paranormal and metaphysical world of Twilight tonight. Host Dee Moonflyer grew up with very open-minded parents who had many experiences with UFOs and the paranormal. Because of her mom's insistence on exposing her to spiritual classes, meditation, and teachings of Edgar Cayce, Dee had a fascination and deep interest in the paranormal. Her own paranormal experiences have led her to seek out and interview other fascinating, knowledgeable people for better understanding of this phenomenon. Now, your host of Twilight Tonight, Dee Moonflyer.
Happy Friday, everyone. Robert, how are you?
Doing well, thank you.
We have Robert Lindsy Milne in the house tonight.
Yeah.
And as always, amazing guest.
Really? Is that what really? Thank you. But how?
How what?
You said I'm always amazing. How I just do readings, so
That's very amazing. And you help a lot of people.
Yes, my whole life.
So that is amazing, Robert. It's a gift.
I think I have a talent that I worked really, really hard to develop. Because I believe almost everybody has an intuitive psychic awareness. So we all pretty much have it, but not everybody. So if you think of a bell-shaped curve, at one end of the curve, there's one person that has absolutely zero awareness. And then at the other end of the curve, there's someone that has 100% awareness. And then the rest of us are in between. So most of us have that intuition. And then if you work at it, develop it, experience it, you just get better and better and better and better.
And I'm wondering, now I know you started at a very young age, correct?
Yeah, I was 15 and a half when I first started my professional career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At a tea house, if I remember right.
That cozy tea room, it was. And
it
sounds so quaint. It was a dump, by the way.
But you know what? Some of the best memories are in those places.
It was quite an amazing experience. The way I got the job, I phoned a tea room. Like I was homeless at the time. It was wintertime. And I heard that if you worked at the cozy tea room doing tea leaf and card readings, in the afternoon, you would get a sandwich and a cup of tea. And if you worked in the evening, you'd get like a hot meal sandwich, cup of tea, and cookies. And then you got paid at the end of both shifts. So I applied. I had never read a tea leaf in my life. And in terms of cards, I had absolutely no idea what they meant.
Interesting.
And I had to do a tea leaf reading and a card reading. Now, I had survived on the streets by my psychic ability. And my awareness and my psychic ability started early in my life, or I became aware of it early in my life. And several times in my early life, without realizing it, I'd make commitments to do this type of work. And then throughout my life, I've made several different types of commitments to keep doing it. So when I started working at the tea room, when I went there, it was really a cold day. And I picked up the teacup I had to do the reading for the owner, Mrs. Cox. And I picked up the teacup, put it in front of my face, and there were globs of tea leaves to me. And all I did, instead of just saying things exactly the way I normally would have, I related them to the tea leaves.
That's
and
interesting.
then, sorry?
That is really interesting.
And then when it came time to the cards, I put the cards on the table. And I had no idea what they meant, but I would incorporate what I was saying and pointing at the card. Now, I had no idea what the card meant, and I just said whatever I would have said anyway. Anyway, I got the job, and I started in the afternoon. And I also worked on the night shift as well. So I got, sandwich, cup of tea, got paid, then hot meal, got paid, got a place to sleep that night too. Oh. And I started working at the Cozy Tea Room the next day. Well, that day. And I worked there until I was about 21. And most weeks I went to work at 5 days a week. And in those days, depending upon the day, you could walk into work and there'd be 40 people waiting to see you. Or you would do that many throughout the day, they just kind of come in and, flow in. And we did readings until we finished doing the readings. And I did. Now, some days you'd get 10, but the spread was pretty good, and we were always doing a lot. And by the time I was about 21, and then there were weeks that I worked 6 days a week on the Saturday, and often I would work on the Sunday. We would go to private groups or parties, so I would be working 7 days a week. By the time I was about 21, I had my 10,000 hours.
Wow.
And then I left the tea room. I'll just do one really quick story about that time, and if you want, we can talk about other things. So when I left the Cozy Tea Room, I heard that when a young man becomes a priest, they make a vow to say a mass every day of their life. I decided that this is what I was going to do. I made a vow that I was going to do a psychic reading or practice being psychic every day of my life. And I managed to do that practice or do a psychic reading every day of my life for a little bit more than 30 years before I missed a day of practice, regardless of the situation that I was in. And the reason I took the day off was because I wanted to find out what it was like not to do it.
Sure.
I was interested in that part too, because it had been through 21 into my 50s, 60s, So I stopped. I stopped and took a look. Well, for a day, and then I went back. And I very seldom miss a day of practice or doing psychic readings. I recently had quadruple open heart bypass surgery, in April. And I went the longest time in my life without doing a psychic reading when I had the surgery. And so I had the surgery was on April 6th, and I finished my last reading in the early evening of April 5th. And then the next morning I so from April 6th to about the 10th or 11th of May, I didn't do a psychic reading. And that was the longest in my life. I had never went without doing a psychic reading or practicing.
Out of curiosity, how did that make you feel? Did you feel lost a little bit?
Near the end of that time, I started thinking about it, but at the very beginning, it was like all of my systems had been turned off. You know, somebody flipped a switch and my nervous system just shut down. Because my nervous system shut down, I didn't know that all my nervous system, my nervous system was shut down. So I wasn't feeling a whole lot or thinking a whole lot. But as that time wore on, and near I was gonna, do, because it had like been near the end, I was thinking, you got to get back on the horse, He's like, let's do. And I had to, well, of course, I just wouldn't go back to work and start doing like regular readings. I started practicing to see if I could do them. And the first one back was just agony. I was practicing with somebody, right? I wasn't doing like and I was stunned at the amount of energy it took to do the reading. There had never been a time in my life that was an issue for me, energy. Up until April 5th, I was doing like 5-6 readings a day. And now just to get through about 35 minutes, usually, they're usually about an hour. The amount of energy it took was just huge.
Wow. I think part of that, in my own personal opinion, when you give and give, sometimes you just need that break.
Sure.
And you've given for so many years a huge part of your light that,
yes,
it was time for a break. And my husband has a question. How
Please.
does it feel to get psychic information? Is it like hearing?
It's like knowing.
The knowing.
Now that's the way I do it. Other people do it differently. And I'm of the opinion, it doesn't matter how you do it, just as long as you do it. When we start putting names on things that we do, we take away our creativity, and we take our focus away from where the psychic part of our brain works. And we put the focus on the analytical brain, what we think. Well, that's not where the psychic stuff comes from. So when you start looking for, are you a clairsentient? Are you a telepath? Are you a channeler? Are you remote? It doesn't matter. You just do it. Don't put a name on it. Just do what you do. So I put very little energy into how I get the answer. If you were taking a math test and you just put the answer on the paper, okay, so the professor, kind of like laugh, and you wouldn't be getting a good mark for that math test. In my job, you don't get points for knowing how to do it. You get points for getting the answer. And it doesn't matter what you do to get it, just get the bloody answer.
Right. I have a question in the comment section.
Yes.
Let me look here for everybody. Did your mediumship change after your illness or your psychic abilities?
Well, you see, I don't put that label on me.
And you just said that.
Yeah, I don't put that label on me, especially that label, mediumship. Not because I'm against it, not because I disbelieve it. I just don't do it. What I do is come up with the answer. Early in my career, I remember this time I was in my early 20s. I was the first Canadian psychic to appear on radio and TV shows and do call-in. I was like the first one. And I was also the first one that toured across the country and appearing on radio and TV shows. And there was this one time I was in a small city called London, Ontario in winter, and they're famous for their big snowstorms. And the week that I was there, they had the biggest snowstorm in the last 50 years. And I remember this man came to me for a reading. And he was maybe as old as me now. He was retired. And I asked him, so what did you do when you were working? And he said that he was a courtroom stenographer. It means he, wrote down stuff. And I said, that's really fascinating. How many words a minute can you write? And he said, I don't know. And I was expecting a number or something. And he said, I don't know. I just write what they say. So it didn't matter how many, it's that you did it. And that's how I've been a psychic.
And the next question that they want to know is,
was that an answer? Was that answer to that question?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
When you're next to somebody, do you hear their thoughts? Is the next question. Or are you able to turn that off?
At this time, it seems yes and no. And I think, a lot of, the way I'm answering this question is the result that as a result of, this coming January, I celebrate being a professional psychic for 59 years. And yeah, I know, it's amazing.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Turned 74 just a few days ago, 13th. So, I forgot what I was going to say about that part too. Oh, yes. What I find is that I don't have the same kind of energy that I had when I was younger, being able to deal with and ward off the tension, the pressure, the stress. at this stage, however, at that time, as good as I really was, and I was pretty good, if only I would have known I was going to become this good when I was that good, it might have been made it might have been fun. Anyway, it's a little, so back in those days, I had more energy and I did see very clearly. And I was doing things in those days that almost no one was doing. Call-in radio shows was, and the way I did it was you call in, tell me your first name, where you're calling from, think of a question or write it down. Don't ask me. And don't tell me the question. And then, hi, my name is Mary. I'm calling from, and I just start talking. And almost, 80%, 90% of the time, I talk about off the top of my head or things related to what their questions were or are. And there were times when I was doing that, and I can still do it. It's much more draining. Where I would do things like, and remember, this is in like the old days where the telephones were on the wall and
Yep,
right.
Yep.
Yeah, or you're sitting in the hallway talking on the phone, right? Or
yes, I remember those days.
Yeah. So it would be like, person phones in, hi, my name is Mary, such and such. And I'd say, Mary, thank you so much for calling in. You're sitting down now. Yes. Okay. Thank you. You're holding your phone with your left hand. Yes. Thank you. If you turn your head to the right, are you looking out the front window? Yes. Okay. Now, if you look above the drapes, incidentally, are they pink? Yes. Oh, thanks. If you look above the drapes, is that where there's a crack or a chip in the wall? And Mary say, how do you know that? And so maybe I'm psychic or something, some smart ass remark. And that's what I did. I was being psychic. I was doing my psychic thing. Some people call it remote viewing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so all the things that I do, the things that I do are like that and more. I channel, maybe I do, but I'm not worried about channeling. I'm worried about the answer to the problem. So how I get it's irrelevant. That's one of my latest rants.
Okay, I like it, and we're going to be right back after these messages with Robert.
Well,
Are you looking for unbiased and uncensored paranormal and spiritual talk? At WLTK-DB.com, we offer several talk shows ranging from self-care to hauntings and everything in between. Find the shows and hosts on our website at WLTK-DB.com. You can watch them live or catch up on your latest favorites. While you're there, be sure to check out the store and pick up some of the latest station swag. Did you know we had a station blog, or that you can host your own show? It's all online at WLTK-DB.com. Looking to advertise? Check out our competitive pricing and let's get you noticed. WLTK Talk Radio has something for everyone. So be sure to stop by and say hello at WLTK-DB.com.
Can you hear me all right?
I can, Robert.
Oh, fantastic. Great.
Welcome back, everyone. Robert, I have another question from the audience.
Okay.
And have you helped to find lost people?
I heard the words, have you something lost people?
Oh.
What was the word between?
Have you helped to find lost people?
Yes, I have. Usually kicking and screaming to the crime scene, so to speak.
Yeah.
I really don't like to do this. And most of the time I've been more forced to do it than certainly, I've never volunteered. So there was this time when I was first, it was in the 1980s, and I used to go on tour across the country and then the continent. And I wasn't all that good with looking after money or working with money. And at the first place to get the tour started, I used to, go to this one little city just north of Toronto called Barrie. And I'd drive up in the morning, check into a motel, run to the radio station, put on that psychic demonstration of all those, things I do like that. And then I say, if you'd like to have a reading from me, I'm staying at the Bayshore Inn, call me. Then I'd drive like hell back, well, not drive crazy, but I'd get, back to the hotel, answer the phone, I'd book, like 10 readings for that day, 10 readings for, early the next morning, and then I'd check out. So I'd have one night's rent, and whatever I had for dinner and whatever I had for breakfast in the morning, and everything else was profit. And that's how I called it my front money. That's how I got the money to go to the next city, so that I have the money to check into the hotel for the first night. And then at the next city, I got enough money to check into the hotel and pay for myself and my assistant's room. And that's how I began the tours.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So with all of this going on in your life, how did you find time for yourself to regroup?
It depends on what era in my life. I got drunk a lot. Well, actually, a lot. I did cannabis and things like that. Certainly never did any of the chemicals, but I did that. That wasn't relaxation. I just simply did it. Every era of my life, I've had an avocation. And sometimes at the same time, I have two avocations. Like, for example, in my 40s, I was still touring and doing readings. One avocation was I got really interested in baking. And I started off with, baking chocolate chip cookies. Mm-hmm. And I took it to the point that I was going around to all the fall fairs, entering the events and winning them. Little old ladies hated my guts. And and I even went to the school to become a judge, to judge the exhibits. So that was, and by the way, when I first entered, it was at the Beamsville fair. I got so mad because I thought that I didn't get judged fairly. And I thought I should have won all the ribbons, not that I had an ego, but I thought, and I didn't. So I wanted to understand the rules of what they were looking for. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't get any information. So what I did was join the Lincoln County Women's group, and in the baking, in the food department that looked after the baking contests, and I was in that department. So I joined the Beamsville Women's Group, first man ever to do that, by the way.
So that was your way of escaping.
Yeah. Now also, when I say I baked, every morning before going to work, and every evening coming back after work, I would bake as well. And everywhere I went, I took my baking. And also my partner at the time, she was a healthcare worker in the community, and she would take my baking out to her patients and stuff. And a couple of my stepchildren would take their baking too. And everywhere I went, I had a pie with me or whatever. And in the morning, I'd go through McDonald's, drive-through. I'd give them a pie. They'd give me a And you know what? In those days in Beamsville, nobody knew that I was Robert Lindsy Milne, the psychic. They thought I was a pastry chef.
Oh, yeah.
So, at the same time, my other avocation was powerlifting.
So you would almost go to extremes with stuff.
Do you notice that by any chance?
Absolutely, and I understand that. Yes.
And I decided that I was going to make myself as physically strong as I could possibly do. And on the day it was on my 49th birthday, and on that day I squatted 405 pounds for 6 reps.
Wow.
I leg pressed 1,000 pounds for 6 reps, and I bench pressed 365 for 5 reps. And that was the strongest of my entire life.
Wow. Yeah. It's like...
It took me 8 years to get there.
Yeah, it's like extremism.
Every day, yeah.
Extremism to be away from everything.
Yeah. And then I did psychic readings too.
Oh my gosh. I bet you slept a lot.
I what?
Did you sleep a lot during that time?
No, I was always had a lot of energy, and I 6 hours, 7 hours.
So with your abilities now, what do you see for yourself in the future? What kind of work do you want to do with those abilities?
Well, I will always do readings. I'll always give aid. My goal is to always be kind. as long as I'm contributing, as long as I'm doing what I am made for or was born to do, which is this, I'll do the best that I possibly can. And when I can no longer do that, then I've completed what I'm here for. Celebration time. Well, actually, it's celebration time now because I look at how far I came. And another, arguably at this time in my career, I am at the most successful time. I have, in 2022, I was on 50 podcasts around the world. I had a 20-year goal fantasy to get on Coast to Coast. Took me 20 bloody years to get on that show.
Coast to Coast is awesome.
20 years it took. And then December 1st, 2022, bam. George said to me a little while into the show, he said, how come you haven't been on the show 100 times before? And then he said, you have an open invitation to be on the show anytime you want.
That's awesome.
And then when we took calls, he said I was one of the best psychics that had ever been on his show.
That's awesome. So Robert, out of curiosity,
29 years, I'm an overnight success. Never give up.
How do you feel about animals?
I have 3 golden retrievers right now. My oldest one, her name is Tessa, and Tessa is 14 years, 9.5 months. My other dog, Lacey, is 12.5. Mm-hmm. And my third dog, Tyson, Tessa's grandson, is 9.
Aww. I love animals.
I really love cats also, but I don't have any right now simply because my neighborhood isn't safe for cats.
Well, in case you haven't noticed.
Oh, yes. Yes.
There she is.
Yes.
She's 30. Do you communicate with animals as well?
No. Yes. One of the reasons I might have looked incredulous is that it was just like, and do you talk to people too? It was kind of like that. That's it's just so natural. Mm-hmm. It's just part of the language, and in communicating with those forms, and they are on a mental level lower forms. They think differently than we do, and one of the things that we have that almost no other species on the planet has is the ability to see the future. Not the way a psychic sees the future, but seeing the future, knowing if today is Friday, tomorrow's Saturday. That's seeing the future. Most animals can't do that. They are in the now. So there is no past, there is no future for them. Well, there is, but they don't know it. They're in the now. So that certainly gives us a big influence with them. But when we communicate with them, they communicate by their eyes, their ears, both by taking energy in, sound in, and also by the way they move their ears. They communicate with their mouth, especially when they bite you. They show you by the way they stand what you're feeling. They are in tune with you.
Yeah.
And they just don't see into the future or the past, which is why we get away with so much crap with them.
Well.
Right? Because they forget.
Unless you're a parrot, they never forget.
Oh, well, that's there's always an exception to right. So, and dogs are intelligent, and then there are, but it's not just like, oh, this dog is an intelligent dog like all, and no, there's different grades of their intelligence depending upon what they were meant to do.
Right.
And once upon a time, not very long ago, every breed of animal was bred for a specific job. Do you know what Chihuahuas were bred for? Incidentally, they are tough little dogs. Not only do they bark, but they can back it up too. Well, within reason, like a pit bull, game's over. But with in the same weight bracket, So so
oh yeah, Chihuahuas are
no, they were bred. They're ratters. They were bred to climb in the adobe walls and fight and kill the rats. Tough little dogs.
Yes, they are.
They're
cute little buggers though, but they are tough.
So just about every dog was bred for a purpose. And that's why they have different shaped heads and mouths and feet and, body shapes.
I have a question from somebody online. What psychic experience has stood out to you?
What experience?
What psychic experience has stood out to you?
There is no actual, this is the one that's the absolute greatest. There have been so many absolute greatest. I'm not sure which one.
Okay.
And the greatness would be in the different categories.
Sure.
Okay. So I got involved for the Canadian RCMP and the security service and had a connection with a KGB agent and posing as pretending that he was a journalist, but he also had diplomatic passport. And I interacted on the behalf of the RCMP security service in interacting with this man. I interacted with those RCMP people helping find dead letterboxes in Niagara Falls during the Cold War, when more intelligence was being passed in Niagara Falls than anywhere in the world. Niagara Falls in New York and Canada, and my job I went down to Niagara Falls every month for a couple of years and looked at the maps and then searched out where the dead letterboxes were. Found a bunch. I had a psychic connection with a man that was in a coma, dying from an infection of the most potent super virus in the world. It was 100% antibiotic resistant. And he had it, and he was in a coma. And when you get that, you die. He didn't. Now, I'm not the star of that show, honest to goodness. But the role I played, had not somebody with my skills not played that role, Tom would have died. So his wife, a renowned epidemiologist, her husband dying in a coma. Incidentally, that superbug that was killing her husband was the very same superbug that she had written her PhD on 30 years previous. At that time, though, it was only like, a midget and a little small, sorry for using that word, folks. Sorry, I didn't mean to. It was like, a little pollywog in the pond. And it's grown, then it grew into the most potent super virus ever. So I told her she would find a cure. And she did, by the way. And she created a group of the most brilliant minds on the planet. And they were scientists and all kinds of people. And she set out to find the cure for that disease and save her husband's life. Tom went into septic shock 7 times. Anyway, I had a psychic link with him. I knew what he was doing, what was going on with him 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. I lived that. Now, like I said, I am not the star of that show. There's so many. If a psychic had not been on that job, Tom would have died. Here's one of 3 different times. So Tom's in a coma. And everyone around him was wearing hazmat suits because of the infection. He caught it in Cairo, Egypt, going through the pyramids. He gets medevaced to a special clinic oh, by the way, he catches the superbug in Cairo, in the hospital. Gets medevaced to a German institution that specializes in this stuff. He's in a coma. Everyone around him is in hazmat suits. He's got this superbug, and he's dying. And Stephanie then was in Germany, of course, with Tom. And then, and I've been long-term, Stephanie and Tom were long-term clients of mine, still are. And Stephanie contacted me. And it was just coming up to Christmas, and I just felt like a bag of shit. I was just so sick that Christmas, and I could barely climb out of bed anyway. And as I was walking down the hallway, I was thinking, Stephanie, what took you so long? Why couldn't you have been called sooner? Anyway, I sat down, answered it, and it was Stephanie. And I said, I've been waiting for you. What took you so long? And then she kind of got a bit startled, and then she told me what was going on. And I said, Tom will live. So that night, I made a psychic link with Tom. There was one point, and there were times I would put clues out for myself. So I in my mind visualized a candle, a lit candle. And when the flame was okay, so was Tom. When the flame was doing something, so was Tom. I didn't know what the something was. I just knew it was something. So when the flame got weaker, I knew what that meant. And so I sensed where he was all the time, even besides that technique. One morning, when I woke up and checked in, the flame was flickering. And I freaked out because it looked like it was going to get blown out. And I contacted Stephanie. And I can say this because all this stuff's in the book, right? I'm not, this is public. And I said to Stephanie, Tom needs to see his children, his daughters. He's sick. He's in pain. He doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know what's happening. And he can hear voices around him talking about him dying. Tom needs to see his daughters. Yesterday would have been a good day. Today's a good day. Tomorrow's not so good. If you wait longer, don't bother. That night, the two girls flew out to Germany, got there. And I knew they got there because I could feel Tom's energy. Well, I could feel him not sucking more from me, but I could feel his energy, and the flame wasn't nearly flickering as much. Now, that's only one of the hundreds of brilliant things that happened, far greater than what I did, except for one thing. You know, it's like take a military person, you know, dressed in full combat outfit, you know, and all covered from head to toe and protected, going out, you know, to fight with a stone in his shoe. Okay, wow. Oh, so it isn't going to kill the soldier, but it's agony. Now, Tom would have died if a psychic wasn't involved. It was just my turn. You know, it's like I was at the Union Hall. Hey, Milne, take this one. You know, like Michelle. You know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's like Michelle. Hey, Robert, we do this interview, please. The person canceled. Oh yeah, sure, I'll do it.
And I thank you for that. It's been wonderful.
You know.
I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. But how do people get a hold of you,
You
Robert?
can you can find me on my website, www.robertlindsymilne.com. Incidentally, I am going to be teaching a psychic class in the next month. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You can also find me on my side of the crystal ball on YouTube. Did I say Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcast? Oh, and Paranormal UK.
Robert, it has been amazing talking to you.
Thank you.
And your abilities are a gift. And I want to thank you so much for coming on Twilight tonight.
Thank you.
You have a great weekend.
I will.
Thank you.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.